There are places in this world where the past refuses to fade, where the sands seem to breathe and the air hums with memories older than time itself. Imagine stepping into a cavern untouched for millennia, finding tools that shouldn't exist or symbols carved in stone that no living person can read. These are not scenes of imagination, they are real. They exist quietly at the edges of understanding, defying everything we think we know about civilization. Tonight, you are not just crossing into history. You're crossing into a realm where fact and myth intertwine, where archaeologists uncover impossibilities, and where forgotten truths wait just beyond the reach of reason. Beneath the waters off India's Gujarat coast, the sea carries whispers of a name spoken in scripture, Dwarka, the legendary city of Lord Krishna. Hindu texts describe it as a place of radiant beauty, palaces of crystal and silver, streets paved with gems, towers shining like the dawn. And like Atlantis, it was said to have vanished into the ocean when Krishna departed the world. For centuries, scholars dismissed the story as myth until 2001, when sonar scans off the Gulf of Kambat revealed vast geometric patterns buried 120 feet underwater. What they found were not random formations, but the unmistakable outlines of city streets, foundations, and walls stretching across the seafloor, carbon dating of recovered artifacts, pottery, wood, fossilized remains, suggested an age of up to 9,000 years, older than Mesopotamia or Egypt. If these findings are accurate, they point to a civilization that flourished thousands of years before recorded history. Some scientists argue that the data must be wrong. Others suggest it demands a rewriting of everything we know about human origins. Indian archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao claimed the ruins match descriptions from the Mahabharata, showing a fortified harbor and temples later swallowed by the sea. His findings were met with fierce debate, dismissed by some as misinterpretation, defended by others as revolutionary. Divers have spoken of staircases, columns and stones, aligned too precisely to be natural. Some say they've seen faint inscriptions beneath layers of coral. And then the Indian government restricted access to the site, no independent dives, no new permits. Whispers followed that the discovery might upset accepted chronologies, that a civilization predating all known empires could shift the center of world history. Some say the silence hides something larger, something not ready to be revealed. The legend tells us that when Krishna left, the sea rose to reclaim his city, a divine punishment, or perhaps a cosmic reset. Yet the geological evidence fits eerily well with the great floods that ended the last ice age, when rising seas swallowed entire coastlines. If Dwarka truly dates to that era, it may be one of many ancient cities lost beneath the waves, remnants of a forgotten epoch when humans already mastered architecture, astronomy, and trade. Underwater mapping has shown that parts of the ruins align with celestial points, the solstice sun, the constellations, mirroring sacred geometry seen in other ancient monuments. Artifacts include carved beads, tools, and strange discs etched with circular symbols resembling star maps. Officially, they remain unclassified. Unofficially, they suggest knowledge far beyond the supposed reach of Neolithic cultures. And there is the unease, divers reporting unnatural silence, barren waters devoid of life, sonar anomalies shaped like moving shadows. Perhaps just tricks of the deep, or perhaps something left behind, a pulse still resonating from an age before history began. Thousands of miles away, on a lonely island in the South Pacific, another mystery waits among the winds and volcanic stone. Easter Island, Rapa Nui, where hundreds of colossal statues stand watch over empty plains and crashing surf. Each moai, carved with haunting precision, gazes inland as if guarding the living. The largest stands over 70 feet tall, weighing more than 80 tons. How a small, isolated population moved such giants without wheels, beasts, or metal tools remains a mystery. The old theory claimed they destroyed their forests to move the statues, dooming themselves to starvation and collapse. But new research tells a different story, of a people who walked the moai upright with ropes and rhythm, rocking them forward like sentient beings. Excavations have revealed that the statues are not just heads, but full-bodied figures buried over centuries of shifting soil, covered in intricate carvings hidden from sight. To the Rapa Nui, these statues were more than art. They were vessels of mana, divine energy anchoring the spirits of ancestors to the land. They were positioned with purpose, aligned to the stars and the sun, forming an island-wide map of cosmic order. And though the island's forests vanished and its people endured invasion, slavery, and disease, the moai remain, guardians of memory carved in stone. The people of Rapa Nui also left behind a riddle carved into wood, the Rongorongo script, a series of looping glyphs of birds, fish, and figures arranged in alternating lines. No one has ever deciphered it. If it is a true writing system, it would mark one of the rare cases in which literacy arose independently on Earth. Its origins, like the knowledge that built the moai, are lost to time. What destroyed the Rapa Nui was not their own hubris, but the arrival of outsiders, disease, enslavement, and the suppression of their culture. The moai were toppled, their language silenced, their rituals outlawed. Yet still the statues stand. They are not relics of failure, but symbols of endurance, proof that isolation could breed genius and that faith could outlast conquest. Far across the world, in the burning sands of Egypt, another enigma sleeps beneath the desert, a labyrinth so vast and complex that even the ancients spoke of it with awe. Herodotus wrote of 12 great courts, thousands of chambers, and underground passages that held the tombs of kings and sacred crocodiles. He said it surpassed the pyramids. Later explorers confirmed its scale before it vanished beneath silt and time. In the late 19th century, archaeologist Flinders Petrie unearthed massive stone foundations at Hawara, matching Herodotus's descriptions. The site was soon abandoned, reburied, and largely forgotten. Modern ground-penetrating radar has since revealed vast structures still buried beneath the surface. Rooms, corridors, stairways, yet excavation remains restricted. Some say the discovery could rewrite Egypt's architectural history. Others claim it hides something far older and more mysterious. The labyrinth may have been more than a monument. Some believe it was a living map of the afterlife, a ritual landscape meant to guide the soul through the 12 hours of the underworld. Others whisper that it was a containment structure, built not to guide spirits but to imprison them. Whatever its purpose, its design suggests knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and psychology far ahead of its time. Egypt's sands are patient. They conceal what they cannot destroy. Beneath them may lie a structure that once mirrored the heavens, a place where priests walked the path of the dead, where architecture became ritual and stone became memory. Every one of these mysteries, Dwarka beneath the sea, the moai of Rapa Nui, the buried labyrinth of Egypt, tells the same story in different tongues. That human history is not a straight line. That civilizations rise, fall, and vanish, leaving only whispers behind. And that sometimes the truth of who we are lies not in what we remember, but in what we have forgotten. Now it sleeps beneath the sand, but the ground is restless. And one day, the shifting earth may reveal what it has kept hidden for millennia. Perhaps then the lost labyrinth will awaken, and we will walk its corridors again, not as Herodotus did with awe, but with fear, deep in the Aegean Sea, where sunlight fades into black water. A storm once sent a Roman ship to its grave. It carried marble statues, bronze relics, and a treasure the world was not ready to comprehend. A corroded lump of metal that would later be called the Antikythera mechanism. When sponge divers discovered it in 1901 near the Greek island of Antikythera, it seemed nothing more than rusted fragments of bronze fused inside a wooden box. No one could have imagined that inside lay the most advanced piece of engineering from the ancient world, a device that should not have existed. Over decades, scientists pieced together its secret using X-rays and 3D imaging. What emerged was astonishing. A hand-powered machine of over 30 interlocking gears capable of predicting eclipses, tracking planetary movements, and mapping lunar cycles. It even calculated the dates of the Olympic Games. Built more than 2,000 years ago, it functioned as an analog computer, centuries before such concepts were thought possible. Its precision rivaled Renaissance clockwork. Its purpose? To replicate the heavens in metal. But the deeper scholars studied it, the more unsettling the implications became. How could the Greeks, with the technology of their time, have achieved such mechanical sophistication? The gear ratios were perfect. The engineering mirrored designs not seen again until the 14th century. This was not theoretical genius, it was technical mastery, yet no record exists of its creation. No workshop, no blueprint, no other example has ever been found. The device stands alone, as though history briefly opened a door to a lost world of knowledge, and then slammed it shut. Some believe the mechanism was the product of an isolated genius, perhaps a student of Archimedes or a craftsman from Rhodes. Others see it as the last surviving artifact of a vanished tradition, a lineage of technology erased by time, conquest, or catastrophe. A few even suggest it was not innovation, but preservation, an inheritance from an older, forgotten civilization. Its knowledge distilled into bronze before disappearing forever. Every detail of the device reinforces the mystery. It contains a lunar anomaly mechanism that mimics the moon's uneven orbit, a 19-year metonic calendar, and an eclipse prediction dial accurate to within hours. Such design implies not only mechanical genius, but centuries of accumulated astronomy and mathematics. If the Greeks built this, where did they learn how? And if they inherited the knowledge, from whom? Today, the Antikythera mechanism sits behind glass in Athens, its corroded gears frozen in time. Replicas can be built, equations can be reconstructed, yet the true depth of its design remains only partly understood. It is not a myth or a rumor. It is real proof that our picture of ancient progress is incomplete, perhaps deliberately so. The mechanism does not just rewrite history. It whispers that history itself has been rewritten. Thousands of miles east, another enigma sleeps beneath the soil of China's Zhejiang province. In 1992, a villager trying to drain a small pond discovered a hidden cavern beneath the water. As the pond emptied, it revealed smooth walls carved from solid rock, too perfect to be natural. Excavations uncovered not one chamber, but 24, each vast, symmetrical, and hewn with impossible precision. The Longyu grottos had been found, a subterranean complex so large it could swallow a cathedral whole. Every surface of the grottos is marked by rhythmic, parallel chisel lines perfectly uniform, as if made by machine. The chambers rise nearly 100 feet high, supported by carefully placed stone pillars, with no signs of collapse or erosion, despite thousands of years underground. But the greatest mystery isn't how they were built, it's that no record of them exists. In a civilization famed for detailed documentation, there is no mention of their construction in any Chinese chronicle. To carve one chamber would have taken years of labor. To carve 24 would have required a workforce of thousands, light sources, ventilation, and engineering knowledge far beyond what was thought possible for the period. Yet no tools, no debris, no human remains have been found. The millions of cubic meters of excavated stone simply vanished. Where did it go? And why were the grottos created at all? No soot stains the ceilings, suggesting that torches weren't used. There are no signs of habitation, no altars, no storage jars, only the echo of design without purpose. Some believe they were imperial storehouses or hidden tombs, though none hold relics or bodies. Others see them as sanctuaries for rituals now lost, perhaps built to mirror the heavens underground. More speculative minds speak of pre-dynastic civilizations, forgotten technologies, or even contact with something beyond human. The grooves on the walls, carved in perfect unison, may have had symbolic meaning, a code, a rhythm, an artistic language now erased from memory. The sheer precision of the pillars and ceilings suggests a mastery of geometry and load-bearing architecture centuries ahead of its time. And yet, like the Antikythera mechanism, the Longyou grottos exist in silence, acknowledged but unexplained. Their origin an unanswered question carved in stone. If the Antikythera mechanism is a whisper of forgotten knowledge, the grottos are its echo, one mechanical, the other monumental. Both hint at civilizations that reached peaks of understanding, only to collapse or vanish. Their achievements buried until chance unearthed them again. And then there are the languages, the voices of the past that refuse to be heard. The Indus script, the Etruscan tongue, linear A of the Minoans, all fragments of civilizations whose words have turned to stone. They adorn seals, tablets, and temples, yet no one can read them. Without a Rosetta Stone, their meanings remain locked away. Their stories untold. The Indus Valley civilization, with its grid-planned cities and advanced sanitation, left behind hundreds of symbols carved into steatite seals, representations of animals, deities, and abstract shapes. They may hold the key to one of humanity's first urban societies, but the language they represent has never been deciphered. The Etruscans, who predated Rome and shaped its culture, wrote thousands of inscriptions, but only fragments of their language survive. We can read their alphabet, but not their meaning. Their prayers, laws, and myths remain forever untranslated. The Minoans of Crete left behind the script known as Linear A, ancestor to Linear B, which recorded early Greek, but Linear A itself remains silent. It is as though the first language of Europe was deliberately erased. Its words still visible, but forever mute, even on Easter Island. The mysterious Rongorongo tablets bear glyphs of birds, plants, and human forms arranged in alternating lines. No one knows if they represent poetry, history, or sacred chants, like the Moai statues that stand in eternal watch. The script speaks of a people who understood how to endure time, and how to hide their meaning from it. And in the deserts of Iran, the Elamites wrote their own script, Linear Elamite, a language of kings and gods that has resisted all efforts at translation for over 3 millennia. Without it, an entire civilization remains voiceless. Each of these lost scripts is a locked door, each undeciphered artifact a key that doesn't fit. Together, they remind us that history is not a complete story, but a mosaic with missing pieces. Some were lost through conquest and decay. Others, perhaps, were meant to be forgotten. The Antikythera mechanism, the Longyou grottos, the labyrinth beneath Egypt, the voices carved into stone, they are not isolated mysteries. They are fragments of the same forgotten truth, that humanity has risen and fallen more than once, that civilizations have reached heights of knowledge we barely begin to grasp, and that every discovery is not a revelation, but a reminder. What sleeps beneath the soil and sea is not just the past. It is possibility, waiting for the moment when we dare to remember. It sleeps beneath layers of history, but the earth is restless, and one day the shifting sands may uncover what time has hidden. When that day comes, we may walk those forgotten corridors again, not in wonder as Herodotus once did, but in dread. Far from Egypt's deserts, deep beneath the Aegean Sea, a storm once pulled a Roman ship to its doom. Among its scattered treasures lay something the world was not ready to understand, a small, corroded lump of metal that would one day be known as the Antikythera mechanism. Discovered in 1901 near the Greek island of Antikythera, it seemed at first a meaningless relic. But inside that decayed bronze was a device that changed everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. Through X-rays and 3D imaging, scientists uncovered a network of intricate gears, 30 or more, crafted with mathematical precision. The mechanism predicted eclipses, mapped the motion of planets, and tracked the lunar cycle with astonishing accuracy. It even marked the dates of the Olympic Games. Made around 100 BCE, it was essentially an analog computer, a machine that should not have existed for another 1,000 years. No other artifact like it has ever been found. No record of its maker, no workshop, no description of its design. Some believe it was created in Rhodes or Alexandria, the last breath of a vanished scientific tradition. Others think it was built from knowledge inherited from an earlier, forgotten age. The question is not just how it was made, but why the knowledge vanished completely, as though erased from human memory. Thousands of miles east, another mystery lies hidden under the soil of China's Zhejiang province. In 1992, a farmer drained a small pond and uncovered smooth carved walls beneath it, too perfect to be natural. Excavations revealed 24 massive underground chambers, the Longyu grottos, carved entirely by hand, yet precise beyond explanation. Each hall stretches over 100 feet high, with rhythmic chisel marks covering every surface. The pillars stand in flawless alignment, supporting immense weight without collapse. And there are no records, no tools, no signs of habitation. In a civilization renowned for its detailed chronicles, not a single word exists about who built them or why. The amount of stone removed would fill hundreds of swimming pools, yet no trace of it has been found. There is no soot, no torch residue, no evidence of light sources, suggesting construction methods that defy logic. Were they temples? Granaries, tombs, or something far stranger? The silence is total. The grottos are real, measurable, and ancient, yet they stand outside history, a puzzle too vast for explanation. And then there are the lost languages, the ghost voices of vanished worlds. The Indus script carved on ancient seals, the Etruscan inscriptions on funerary stones, the Minoan linear A scratched into clay tablets, all remain undeciphered. Each represents an entire civilization we can see but cannot hear. We can read their architecture, their art, even their trade routes, but not their words. The Indus Valley people built cities with advanced sanitation and perfect geometry, yet their script, over 400 symbols, has never been decoded. The Etruscans, who shaped early Rome, left behind prayers and laws that no one can fully translate. The Minoans of Crete invented a writing system that predates Greek, but its meaning has been lost for millennia. At the center of this controversy is the recurring accusation of suppression. Many insist that institutions like the Smithsonian removed or concealed evidence that contradicted accepted history. Stories circulate of crates of oversized bones quietly disappearing into archives, of museum curators ordered to stay silent, of lost paperwork and missing photographs. The Smithsonian has repeatedly denied these claims, attributing any confusion to early record-keeping errors, looting, and the careless destruction of artifacts by guano miners. Still, the disappearance of the most critical evidence, especially the giant skulls photographed in the 1930s, has left a silence that conspiracy easily fills. Today, Lovelock Cave remains a protected site. Visitors can walk its dry interior, see ancient duck decoys and baskets in the small local museum, and imagine what might once have been there. Independent researchers still search for traces of the truth, bringing ground-penetrating radar, drones, and new technology to the area. But so far, the cave gives up no more secrets. Without DNA samples or radiocarbon dating, all that remains are stories, part science, part legend, part longing for a past that refuses to be ordinary. What makes the tale endure is not just its mystery, but its resonance with myths found across the globe. Nearly every culture speaks of giants. The Irish told of the Fomorians, enemies of the gods. The Greeks wrote of the Titans. The Bible describes the Nephilim, mighty beings born of heaven and earth. Early explorers claimed to see towering tribes in Patagonia and even in the Pacific. Polynesian legends speak of red-haired visitors from a vanished land. Perhaps these are echoes of memory, or perhaps humanity's imagination is drawn again and again to the same shape. The giant, the ancestor, the fallen god. In the end, the Lovelock cave story sits at the crossroads of myth and archaeology. The tools, the woven artifacts, the remains of an ancient culture are undeniable. Whether those remains belong to ordinary humans or something more, we may never know. But the legend endures because it asks something timeless. How much of history has been lost, hidden, or rewritten? And so the cave waits in silence. Beneath the dust, beneath the questions, beneath the human need to explain the unexplainable, it remains. Perhaps the truth is not buried in bone, but in the persistent human instinct to dig, to wonder, and to listen for the voices of the past, still echoing in the dark. As we journey further into the mysteries of Easter Island, beyond the silent faces of the Moai and the windswept plains, we find an enigma more delicate but equally profound, the lost written language of the Rapa Nui, known as Rongorongo. Carved onto wooden tablets, its glyphs depict birds, fish, humans, and abstract shapes arranged in a unique pattern called boustrophodon, where each line is read alternately left to right and right to left. Despite decades of study, no one has deciphered it. The script remains mute, its meaning lost with the voices of the people who created it. Some scholars argue it was a mnemonic device, rather than true writing, used to aid in rituals or chants, but its very existence on such an isolated island raises unsettling questions. No other Polynesian culture ever developed a writing system. Did the Rapa Nui invent it on their own, a miracle of isolation, or inherit it from a forgotten contact, a missing link across the vast ocean? If Rongorongo is genuine writing, Easter Island becomes one of the few places on Earth where written language emerged independently, a revelation that would transform our understanding of human cognition and creativity. The tablets that survive are few and fragile. Scattered across museums in Europe and the Americas, their inscriptions fading with time. What were the Rapa Nui trying to record? Histories, rituals, warnings, prayers? Perhaps the script and the Moai are two halves of the same message, one written in wood, the other in stone. For centuries, the story of Easter Island has been told as a cautionary tale of self-destruction, a civilization that cut down its trees to move its statues and, in doing so, destroyed itself. Yet new evidence paints a different picture. The deforestation may have been caused not by human recklessness, but by rats introduced by early settlers, devouring seeds before they could sprout. Archaeological records show no mass warfare, no widespread famine, no sign of societal collapse. The Rapa Nui adapted to their changing environment, maintaining ritual life and agriculture even under strain. What truly devastated them was not themselves, but outsiders, European explorers who brought disease, violence, and enslavement. The arrival of colonizers in the 18th and 19th centuries shattered what centuries of isolation had preserved. Populations were wiped out, temples were desecrated, Moai were toppled, many by colonizers, others by missionaries eager to erase pagan symbols. The Rapa Nui's spiritual world, once vibrant and intricate, was reduced to fragments. In that light, the Moai take on a new meaning. They are not relics of folly, but monuments of endurance, the embodiment of ancestors watching over the living. Each statue stands as a guardian of memory, a vessel of mana, the spiritual energy that connected generations. Their buried bodies and weathered faces are not signs of abandonment, but of reverence, a civilization anchoring its dead in the land to ensure the living would not drift away. Beneath the island's surface lie networks of caves, some used as shelters, others as sacred spaces. Carvings line their walls, eyes, spirals, waves, symbols of vision and eternity. These caves may have served as passageways between worlds, gateways for communication with ancestors. Some scholars believe the entire island functioned as a ritual map, its architecture aligned with celestial events. The Moai and the stars, forming a cosmic dialogue that marked the rhythm of seasons and time. The Rapa Nui did not vanish into ruin. They were silenced by conquest, yet their legacy endures in the stone and in the mystery of the unread tablets. The Moai stand not as warnings, but as witnesses, proof of a people who carved their faith into the bones of their land and trusted the ocean to carry their story forward. And still, the story reaches deeper into the sands of Egypt, where beneath drifting dunes lies another riddle, the lost labyrinth. Ancient travelers described it as a structure so vast that it eclipsed even the pyramids, a maze of thousands of halls, corridors, and chambers both above and below ground. Herodotus claimed to have seen it himself, calling it a wonder that defied imagination. He spoke of 12 grand courts, mirrored on either side, and subterranean passages that held the tombs of kings and sacred crocodiles. Others, Strabo, Diodorus, and Pliny, echoed his account, describing it as a political and spiritual center of ancient Egypt. By the 19th century, no trace of it remained, until the archaeologist Flinders Petrie uncovered a massive stone foundation near Hawara, perfectly matching the ancient descriptions. It measured nearly 1,000 feet long, an architectural footprint larger than any temple of its age. But before it could be explored, the site was reclaimed by floods and bureaucracy, sealed again beneath the sand. Later, ground-penetrating radar scans revealed vast cavities beneath Hawara, patterns that looked like corridors and chambers. Yet access was denied, the findings locked away. Some attribute this to national control over archaeological heritage. Others whisper of something far stranger, that the labyrinth was not just a ceremonial complex, but something deliberately hidden. A vault, a prison, or a map of the afterlife too dangerous to expose. If Herodotus was right, the labyrinth's 12 courts may have represented the 12 hours of the Egyptian underworld, each chamber a stage in the soul's journey. Walking through it might have been both ritual and initiation, a living reenactment of death and rebirth. Some believe the site was a gateway between worlds, others that it was meant to contain something, a force bound by geometry and sacred architecture. Whatever its purpose, the labyrinth challenges the notion that Egypt's wonders are fully known. Beneath the desert, beneath the calm of centuries, something immense may still wait. Across the sea in Greece, the same theme emerges, a glimpse of brilliance buried by time. When divers discovered the Antikythera mechanism in a shipwreck in 1901, it appeared to be nothing more than corroded bronze. But beneath the rust lay gears, dials, and inscriptions that turned out to form an analog computer, one capable of predicting eclipses, planetary movements, and lunar phases with astonishing precision. Built around 100 BCE, it was a machine 1,000 years ahead of its time. The ancient Greeks should not have been able to build such a device, and yet they did. It stands as proof that knowledge can rise and vanish, that progress is not linear but cyclical. Who built it? Was it a forgotten disciple of Archimedes, a craftsman from Rhodes, or the last echo of a far older science, one that had already faded when the ship sank? The mechanism should have changed everything, but it was lost to the sea until chance brought it back. A single surviving whisper from a civilization that once measured the heavens with brass and genius. Across the world, in China's Zhejiang province, a similar silence hides beneath the earth. In 1992, a farmer draining a pond uncovered smooth, hand-carved stone walls. Archaeologists soon found an entire network of 24 vast subterranean chambers, the Longyu grottos. Each hall was carved with mathematical precision, its surfaces etched with identical chisel marks, its ceilings high and stable. No tools, records, or traces of habitation were ever found. The labor required to create them would have taken hundreds of workers' years. Yet Chinese history, so thorough in its chronicles, says nothing of their construction. The Longyu grottos are empty. No soot stains, no tombs, no artifacts. The purpose of their creation remains unknown. They stand as perfect, deliberate voids, their silence louder than any inscription. Perhaps they were sanctuaries or ritual spaces for forgotten gods. Perhaps they were built not to be used, but to be remembered. From Easter Island's wooden glyphs to Egypt's buried labyrinth, from the Greek machine that mapped the sky to China's underground halls carved in darkness, one truth begins to emerge. Humanity has built, lost, and rediscovered its genius countless times. The mysteries that remain are not merely puzzles from the past. They are reminders of how easily knowledge can be erased, how fragile memory is when time decides to bury it. And yet, somewhere beneath sand, sea, or stone, the past still waits for us to remember. It isn't just the grandeur of the construction that confounds researchers. It's the complete absence of logic behind its creation. Who would carve out such monumental chambers, and for what purpose? The scale alone is staggering. Experts estimate that nearly 1 million cubic meters of stone were excavated, the equivalent of emptying 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools, one chisel stroke at a time. And yet, no trace of the removed material has ever been found. The nearby landscape shows no spoil heaps, no quarry pits, no signs of reuse. It is as if the stone simply vanished, along with the people who carved it. Even more baffling is the lack of evidence for the tools and methods that would have made such work possible. There are no signs of torch smoke or carbon residue on the ceilings, suggesting that the builders worked without firelight. So how did they see? How did they breathe in the airless dark? Some propose that sunlight was reflected deep into the caverns using polished mirrors, but at such depths and angles that seems almost impossible. Without modern lighting or ventilation, the construction should have been unbearable. The scale of labor adds another layer of mystery. To complete such a vast network would have required hundreds, perhaps thousands, of workers organized under master planners, engineers, and architects. Yet there are no records of them, no writings, no blueprints, no graves, no tools. In a civilization as meticulous in its record-keeping as ancient China, this silence is deafening. Temples, tombs, even small shrines were always documented, celebrated in poetry and official logs. The Longyu grottos appear nowhere in any dynastic history. No emperor claimed them, no chronicler mentioned them. It's as if they were built by ghosts. Inside, the walls bear a strange uniformity. The chisel marks are not random scratches, but deliberate, diagonal grooves, evenly spaced and consistent throughout every chamber. They are too precise to be the result of mere labor. They appear patterned, almost coded. Were they symbolic, a form of writing, a structural technique, or some artistic expression whose meaning has been lost to time? The repetition gives the impression of rhythm and purpose, as if the builders were carving not just stone, but a message. Modern engineers studying the site marvel at its stability. The pillars are perfectly positioned to support the immense weight above, with no evidence of collapse or erosion in over 2 millennia. No cave-ins, no flooding, no structural decay. Whatever their purpose, the builders understood geometry, weight distribution, and stone behavior at a level that defies their supposed era. Theories abound. Some suggest the chambers were spiritual sanctuaries, massive temples carved for forgotten rituals. Others believe they were bunkers, refugees against catastrophe, built to shelter an elite group from flood, war, or cosmic disaster. A few think they were remnants of a pre-dynastic civilization, one whose knowledge predates recorded history. And in the outermost fringes of speculation, others claim the grottos were made with the help of lost technology, or even something not of this world. No matter how far the theories stretch, one truth remains: the Longyu grottos exist. They are real, measurable, and undeniably human-made. And yet they make no sense. In a world where technology supposedly explains everything, they remain a blank space, a dark marker on the map of our past, reminding us how much we've forgotten to ask. Language, the heartbeat of civilization, connects us to those who came before. But what happens when that language disappears, when the words of an entire people vanish into silence? Across the world, countless scripts have defied every attempt at decipherment, leaving behind symbols that seem almost designed to frustrate comprehension. Among the earliest and most enigmatic is the script of the Indus Valley Civilization. Between 2600 and 1900 BCE, this society built cities of astonishing sophistication, gridded streets, advanced plumbing, standardized weights, and yet left behind a script that remains unreadable. Found on seals, pottery, and tablets, the symbols, over 400 distinct signs, bear no clear relation to any known language. No bilingual inscriptions exist, no Rosetta Stone to guide us. Some think it's a logo-syllabic system, others an early alphabet, but its meaning is still locked away. The Indus people recorded something, perhaps trade, perhaps ritual, perhaps governance, but their voice has been erased. A similar mystery shadows the Etruscans of ancient Italy, who flourished before Rome's rise. Their art and architecture survive, their influence seen in Roman religion and city design, yet their language remains only partly understood. A handful of bilingual inscriptions give us glimpses, but most words are still mute. The Etruscans' syntax, alien to Indo-European patterns, defies translation. How could a culture so close to the Romans vanish so completely that even its language left no living echo? Further east, on the island of Crete, the Minoans left behind Linear A, an intricate script used between 1800 and 1450 BCE. Unlike its successor, Linear B, which was deciphered and revealed as early Greek, Linear A has resisted every key. Over 600 symbols appear in temple records and tablets, many tied to trade or ritual, but the language behind them has no known relatives. Some believe it belonged to a culture isolated even then, a linguistic island within an island. In Iran, the Elamites wrote for 1,000 years in a script now known as Linear Elamite. They were contemporaries of Sumer and Akkad, yet their words remain locked away. They traded, built empires, and fought wars, but their thoughts are sealed in undeciphered inscriptions. Without their voice, the tapestry of early civilization remains incomplete. In the Americas, the Maya created one of the most complex writing systems in human history. Their glyphs combine symbols for words and syllables, a flexible system of remarkable sophistication. Much of it has been deciphered, but vast portions, especially those related to religion and cosmology, still resist full understanding. The few surviving codices hint at astronomical precision, mythic cycles, and deep philosophical knowledge, yet most of their writings were burned by conquistadors, silencing a civilization mid-sentence. And on Easter Island, the Rapa Nui etched their own enigma, Rongorongo, onto wooden tablets. Its looping glyphs of birds, fish, and figures dance in alternating lines, a language of beauty and mystery. Like the Indus script, it lacks a translation. No key survives, no memory of meaning. Was it true writing or a ceremonial mnemonic? Either way, it speaks of a people who sought to capture their world in signs, and whose voice now echoes only in questions. These lost languages are more than puzzles. They are absences, gaps in the record of who we are. Each undeciphered script represents a civilization that once spoke, sang, and dreamed in symbols we can no longer hear. Their silence is not failure, but invitation, a challenge to our arrogance and a reminder of how fragile memory can be. Sometimes the greatest mysteries are not buried in pyramids or sealed beneath ice, but hidden in plain sight, in languages unread, in structures unexplained, in questions we've stopped asking. And perhaps that, more than any discovery, is what the past is trying to tell us. Great Zimbabwe was once home to an elite society of rulers, artisans, spiritual leaders, and merchants who traded across vast networks stretching from the African interior to the Swahili coast and as far as Persia, India, and China. Excavations have uncovered imported ceramics, glass beads, and luxury goods that reveal a sophisticated, interconnected economy. At its height, the city may have housed up to 20,000 people, a thriving urban civilization built entirely by the Shona people long before European colonization. Yet for centuries, that truth was deliberately erased. Early colonial archaeologists refused to believe that Africans could have constructed something so advanced. In their quest to uphold myths of white superiority, they attributed the site to outsiders, Phoenicians, Arabs, or even ancient Hebrews, anyone but the indigenous builders. Only in the late 20th century, through the work of African scholars and archaeologists, was the truth finally restored. Even so, mysteries remain. The city's purpose and design continue to provoke debate. It consists of three main areas: the hill complex, believed to be both political and spiritual in nature; the great enclosure, dominated by its enigmatic conical tower; and the valley ruins, where the majority of residents once lived. The meaning behind these structures is uncertain. Some believe the conical tower symbolized royal authority and abundance, perhaps a granary or emblem of fertility. Others see it as a sacred monument tied to the sun or ancestral rituals. With no written records, scholars must rely on fragments, oral histories, and the faint whispers of a vanished culture. Why the city fell into ruin remains unclear. By the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe was deserted, its once bustling streets silent. There is no evidence of invasion or disaster, only gradual decline. Environmental strain may have played a part. Deforestation, overgrazing, and the exhaustion of resources. Some suggest shifting trade routes drew power elsewhere, leaving the city to fade quietly into memory. That silence, lasting for centuries, allowed colonial powers to twist its story into one of denial and theft. To walk among the granite walls today is to feel the pulse of a forgotten empire still lingering in the stones. The site is both a symbol of African brilliance and a ghost of stolen history. The Shona people regard it as sacred ground, a place of ancestors and spirits where kings once communed with gods. Oral traditions speak of rulers known as the Mambo, descendants of divine blood who govern not only their people but the balance of nature itself. Archaeological evidence from the hill complex, charred bones, ritual artifacts and altars supports these tales, suggesting that it was more temple than fortress, chosen as much for its spiritual power as its defensibility. The hill, it was believed, marked a threshold between worlds. The architecture itself seems to hold deeper meaning. The great enclosure, the largest ancient stone structure south of the Sahara, is elliptical, a shape rare in ancient construction and possibly symbolic. Some researchers believe its dimensions encode mathematical or astronomical knowledge, perhaps tied to solar cycles. The conical tower, rising 9 meters high with no openings, has baffled scholars for generations. Whether it symbolized fertility, divine connection, or power, its purpose remains one of Africa's most enduring enigmas. Among the most striking discoveries are the soapstone birds, delicately carved sculptures found within the ruins. These figures, now the national emblem of Zimbabwe, are thought to represent messengers between the human and spirit realms, guardians of royal authority or embodiments of totemic ancestors. Their deliberate placement suggests a sacred pattern, perhaps mapping celestial or spiritual order across the city. Great Zimbabwe defies linear notions of civilization. It thrived without written language, commanded international trade without ships, and mastered architecture without mortar. Yet it was nearly erased by colonial lies. When British archaeologist Gertrude Caton Thompson declared in 1929 that the site was built by the ancestors of the Shona, her findings were dismissed by the colonial establishment. which feared the truth would undermine its ideology. For decades, history itself was censored to preserve the illusion of European superiority. Today, Great Zimbabwe stands proudly as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a testament to African innovation and resilience. But the deeper one digs, the more elusive its secrets become. Beneath its layers lie traces of even older structures, hinting that the site may have been built atop ancient sacred ground. Some geologists suggest that stones were chosen and transported from distant sources not for utility, but for ritual reasons, each rock imbued with spiritual power. Others propose that the city was part of a vast network of sacred sites across southern Africa, aligned by geomagnetic principles or energy lines long forgotten. There are also signs that its abandonment was sudden. In certain layers, archaeologists have found tools and objects left mid-use, as though the people intended to return. There are no signs of war or catastrophe, only quiet departure. Whatever the cause, the city fell into stillness, its memory fading while colonial narratives filled the void. Great Zimbabwe is more than a ruin. It is a revelation. It forces us to confront the arrogance of historical erasure and to acknowledge that civilizations of immense complexity and wisdom flourished long before colonial eyes ever gazed upon them. To stand among its walls is to feel time fold inward, the presence of something vast and sacred humming beneath the granite. The city's silence is not emptiness. It is endurance. Something ancient still waits there, patient as stone, for humanity to listen again.